welcome to today's discussion. We will be tackling a topic that has continued, was an issue even before the pandemic, continues to be an issue even after the pandemic. We are going to be dealing with mental health. We must agree that poor mental health is a fundamental threat to the rights of the world's poorest and most vulnerable. The COVID-19 pandemic has only further highlighted disparities in the global health system. While low resource population bear about 75% of the global burden of mental illness, only about 10% of their mental health needs are met. With me today is a team of very intellectually rich young people who are going to be helping us uncover this topic. And so we are just going to directly delve into it. The first question that I want to start with is based on the stigma surrounding mental health. And I'd want Monica to come in and sort of guide us around this. Monica, what are your thoughts?
All right, thank you, Anthony. Thanks everyone for joining us in this live event. So before we talk about mental health, I'd like to share a little bit about how this global pandemic has been affecting every one of us significantly, but we see that it is the young people who it is in our concern that it is the young people who are the most vulnerable, experiencing such negative impact on their mental health and well-being. As we see that this global pandemic or lockdown and the new normal are starting to affect the education, the work, and the way young people socialize and have relationship, we see that there have been lots of anxiety and concerns within the young people, how they started to experience unmet expectation, uncertainty, the loss of the normal routines, and the difficult social connection. And at the end, it leads the young people to experience anxiety, anger, sadness, disappointment, the feeling of being lonely. And at the end, these reactions can vary according to each people, as according to their age, how they understood information, how they communicate, and how they simply cope with the stress itself. Then we see that at this point, mental health problems are occurring in the form of how it changes the young people's way of thinking and feelings and their moods, and how they are being able to relate with others differently with what they used to do. So at this point, we see that it is not only the symptoms of the mental health problems that is becoming a problem, but sometimes it is the stigma from other people or from the society that makes it even worse to be experienced by the young people. Sometimes the stigma can be in the form of how people might see this mental health threat or problems within young people as the young people being just overreacted or over dramatizing the symptoms that they are experiencing. Meanwhile, what really happens are actually these is the natural reactions of the physical and the mental well-being of people when they experience such a rapid changes. So what I see here and what I would like to emphasize here is that the importance to destigmatize mental health problems as something that is being a problem, and how people are seeing this from the perspective that is not making it as the problems that needs to be solved, but avoiding these problems to be discussed openly. So meanwhile, I see that what young people needs here is that sometimes with having this mental health symptoms, mental health problem symptoms, what they really need is sometimes they need to just talk about it and have a good support system to share what they feel and to listen to them. And sometimes in some certain kind of situation, they might also need to access the mental health support from the professional one. And that can only be possible to be done when the young people feel that it is safe to acknowledge that they are not in a good situation. So I think having this stigma will only worsen the situation, as the young people will not be able to encounter it by themselves, and they will not be able to have this uh, this ability to access the mental health support which they really need the most. So I think that's the very first point that we have to come from, to destigmatize this in order to solve the mental health problem. Thank you.
Wow, such profound remarks. I'd want to ask you just a question, just as a follow through. Do you think mental health has and should be declared as a global crisis?
Well, in the sense of this global pandemic crisis, I would say yes, because it is becoming a concern that is being experienced by everyone. And it's important to see mental health not only as something with a serious symptoms, because sometimes that can occur in in the daily symptoms that we might not really feel that this is a mental health problem. So for example, when someone started to feel less motivated or lose their enthusiasm or lose their motivation to do everything in their normal routine, or even just they have no enthusiasm anymore to do the things that they love, the things that they are passionate with. I think that might be one of the symptoms that someone is experiencing a mental disruptions within this pandemic. So I would say that these might be one of the concern at the global level if we want to encounter the new normal delightfully.
Thank you very much for those remarks. I'd want to bring in Katie Fretwell to just tell us whether she thinks there is a stigma between generations. Katie, whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. I think there definitely is, in the sense of I'm obviously millennial generation, and I think through teaching at Sussex Rights, we teach people who are probably about 10 years younger than us. And we had a session, Monica, I think you were with me, and we were teaching this girl, and she was talking to the whole class, which was about 20 other teenagers, about speaking to her counsellor and the conversation that she'd had with her counsellor. And we were all kind of baffled, because when I was at school, I mean, we had one counsellor at school, and I went to a Catholic school, and she wasn't particularly, she was more of a spiritual guidance counsellor as opposed to like a mental health professional. And she just spoke so openly about it, and all her friends supported her and were talking about maybe if they were seeing a counsellor. And we just thought it was really refreshing to hear a young person talk about getting mental health support with such kind of like flippancy. It was really great. And then going from the other end, I think definitely the kind of baby boomer generation are taught of a stiff upper lip kind of, and especially the kind of wartime keep calm and carry on. It's never really spoken about if people are struggling. But I think then a lot of the time people who do talk about it are massively stigmatized, and it's a taboo, and they're weird, or they're like hippies, and that's what they do. They just talk about all this like airy fairy mental health stuff, when everyone has mental health. If you have good mental health or bad mental health, it doesn't matter, everyone has it. So it's definitely something that isn't spoken about as much with, I know my mum, if she's watching, hi mum, I know she definitely probably finds it easier talking to me and my friends about a lot of mental health issues as opposed to her friends, because she is in her 50s and in a generation where it's not spoken about as much, or when it is, it's kind of after, I don't know, a really long conversation when people then feel comfortable. Whereas a lot of my friends, if I'm having a bad day, I'll go down into my kitchen. I live with 2 other students, and I'll say, oh, I feel really down today, quite stressed, whatever. And it's just kind of integrated itself into part of our daily conversation of saying, what you're doing today is also the same as saying, how are you feeling in yourself today, which is really amazing for our generation. Hopefully the next generation will continue that forward and normalize it even more.
Thank you very much for those remarks. I'd want to bring in Kosi to sort of help us cover the topic of stigma in men and their friendship groups. Is there really mental health stigma based on gender? And if there is, what does it look like in the surrounding of a man, and young men, and also maybe even older men? Kosi, whenever you're ready.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Kosi. I'm speaking from Rwanda. So yeah, it is believed that 1 in 8 men have the common mental health problems. But the funny fact is that in this 1 in 8 men, the majority of them are not willing to open up about their mental health problem, even to their closest friends. So, and this is because of the stigma surrounding the manliness and masculinity of males. So you appear weak when you say you're having a mental problem. But if you say you're having a financial problem, then it's all right. But when it comes to mental problem, you don't say that as a man due to the stigma, because you appear weak and sometimes insensible to most people. Yeah, so a research in 2019, it showed that three-quarter of men are not willing to open up about their mental health problem. And also, with regards to their friends, 39% of them are not 39% of them find it difficult to spot mental health problem amongst their friends. So this makes it really challenging. So not only is the stigma there present, but also among men, it's hard to dictate mental health problem amongst themselves. And this is really bad, and it keeps getting increasing as the goal to fulfill masculinity keeps increasing. So yeah, the stigma is there and its existence, and it really needs to stop. Like mental health, being sick and going to the hospital for physical sickness such as headache, malaria is also equivalent to mental health. So if we take those sicknesses serious, we should also take our mental health serious, not just because of it makes one look weak or anything like that. So yeah, there's a saying that it's not mental health that kills, it's the stigma. And this is very true in the area of with regards to male and their friendship groups. So most times, instead of these males opening up to their friends, they decide to deal with it by themselves by coping with harmful methods such as taking drugs and things like that. Because yeah, I've had a friend, he was going through some mental, he wasn't feeling good at the moment, but yeah, he couldn't open up because he felt like a man. When you're mentally down or things like that, you have to enjoy it to yourself to the end. So he decided to start with drugs, and things just kept getting it kept getting worse and worse and worse, and before he knew it, he found himself in the hospital. So this would show you like how serious the stigma around males, have a group of friends, and boys tease a lot, male friends tease a lot. They will find it difficult to take it serious with you because of the perception that, come on, male big boys don't cry and things like that. So yeah, that's the stigma.
Thank you very much for those remarks. And a good takeaway is that it's not mental health that kills, it's the stigma. I want to bring in Katie so that she can follow up on a comment I've seen on the chat box and tell us about this organization. Katie, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's an organisation called Time to Change, and it's a campaign where people share lots of different stories. It just reminded me of what Kosi was just saying about drug addiction and ways that people might deal with mental health and try and deal with it by themselves without getting help. And a lot of people, there's loads of testimonies where people share their experiences. And I think that's a huge part of destigmatizing mental health, is making yourself vulnerable and sharing your experience, not being forced to, but just if you feel comfortable, because there's definitely strength in vulnerability, and it creates a stronger sense of self if you acknowledge your mental health issues and seek active, productive help, as opposed to so many people who, like a lot of my friends at uni, have struggled with drugs and alcohol, trying to kind of self-medicate that. So I think like Time to Change has some really good testimonies where people make themselves vulnerable, and it's definitely will encourage other people to make themselves vulnerable, especially men. There's a whole section on men's testimonies on that website. So yeah.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Katie. Definitely we should check that organization up. At this point, I want to bring in Stacey through, just for her to help us go through the topic, recognizing mental health in others. Mental health issues in others.
Good day, everyone. My name is Stacey Frew. I'm an 8th grade student at Sacred Heart College and an ambassador for the Youth Cafe. I was given the topic of helping others with mental health problems, with subtitles such as recognizing issues, setting boundaries, and supporting people with boundaries. These topics have a great impact, and it would be more believable if discussed by a professional, but I've done my fair share of research, just enough to cover this topic. So let's begin with recognizing issues. So when we consider mental health issues, we have to consider both those that are maintainable and those that are unmaintainable, those we can and can't recognize just by looking at someone. Where people make their mistake is not being understanding. Us as peers to people who are going through these issues, we fail to educate ourselves on possibility and experience. And with media influence, it becomes easier to hide how you feel and especially what you think. We are so consumed with expectations that we fail to realize just how damaging it can be. More and more people are suffering with mental health problems every day, and the only way to try and uncover the truth is by holding conversations with one another, not forcing each other to speak out about their problems, but creating a safe space for people to do so. Now, everyone has their differences, and not all people want to talk in groups. So with that aside, hold your friends accountable and hold conversations with one another. The most important thing to do is to understand, regardless of what the health issue may be. Along with caring for others, you need to care for yourself. To do this, you need to create and set boundaries. Now, with creating and setting boundaries, it's a very hard thing to do because it requires a lot of self-discipline and commitment to keep up with your boundaries and your ideas. So there are some key things needed in order for you to set and your boundaries. So some of these things were mentioned in The Turning Point, written by Greg Barden. Ask yourself these 3 questions when setting your boundaries. Am I happy? Is this situation or relationship healthy? Is it likely that things will improve? Now, when you have come to terms with these questions, you then identify your limits and what you are setting these boundaries for. Also, it's crucial to make sure that you understand your feelings and that you are ready to make these changes. Start with small changes that do not affect your personal life too greatly, and then move on to things a little bit bigger. Have respect for yourself, and surely then you will see some results coming out of your boundary setting. Everyone at some point in their life sets boundaries. So along with keeping your boundaries, it is crucial that you follow and respect other people's boundaries. To respect someone's boundaries, it means that then you recognize and respect their emotional, physical tolerance, limits, and boundaries on something. You do not make careless remarks or stand your ground in a situation that may be uncomfortable towards someone else. You keep your distance, but make sure that you are of assistance and that that you can be trusted. It is a lot to think about, but with practice, it should become a normal and everyday thing. Mental health is becoming more common, so it is best to educate yourself on the situation. Although there is no magical cure to mental health, we as individuals can use understanding as a way to fix such a vast problem. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for such good remarks and for helping, helping us understand further how we can recognize mental health issues in others. I also want to bring in Bismarck from Activista Ghana to build up on what Stacey has said and sort of maybe talk about setting boundaries to protect your own mental health and supporting people and boundaries. Bismarck, whenever you're ready.
Hello. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share with amazing young people out there and also bring out some few things from my knowledge, my background as well. So Stacey has said a lot. She's actually spoken a lot about the issues, how to set boundaries. So I'm going to start with just giving us a practical view of how I took up this COVID-19 situation. So when the issue kind of propped up in Ghana, well, everyone was just running around trying to see what they can do. So the major fear we all face normally is, okay, as an adult, what's next? How is this going to be like? When is this going to end? What am I going to be doing? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose certain things in my life? So we tend to ask ourselves these sort of questions, and it kind of messes up with us. So this was my situation. I was feeling a bit down because I didn't know when it's going to end. I had some activities I need to do. I had some plans, I had some trainings I need to do both in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Uganda. So I was worried. So now this is the situation for a lot of young people. I don't know whether someone can relate to the fact that they were thinking of what they can lose and how is this going to end. So this was my situation. It sprang up for a while. For 1 week, 2 weeks, I was still agitated, worried, how is this going to end? So now, how did I set my boundaries? I'm going to talk about how I set my boundaries. Then I'll go into some few things that we use in our peer education in Ghana here. So now, first and foremost, I stopped for a while and I thought, okay, now, what do I have control over? So I look at the things I have control over, then I started working on them. In my situation, now I cannot really step out and do what I need to do on a normal basis because I'm a field person. I like to be on the field, facilitating, teaching here and there. So now I can't do that. So what do I do? Leverage on the internet and do what I can do. Reach out to people and do what I can do. If I have to make a call, make a call. Because I don't have control over going outside or trying to do things I used to do. So now, after doing the things I need to do, now I need to come and analyze what I can do and what I can do about what I can do. Now I realize I cannot go out and do what I normally do. So now I need to just live it and be grateful for what I have. The moment we tend to be agitated or ungrateful for what we cannot do in the moment, that is where we start having issues. A lot of people think mental health is mostly about when you hit a rock bottom. It's not mostly about hitting a rock bottom. It's started with the little things that happen in your life with this COVID-19 issue. From the starting point, what were the little things that were trickling into your life? Those are the things that we need to really take care of. And when it builds up, that's when it becomes a big issue for a lot of people. So you set those boundaries, things you can control. A lot of people try to do everything possible, but the truth is you can't do everything. That is the absolute truth. You can't do everything. So look at what you can do in the moment. Pick up the things you can do in the moment. When you are done, pick up a bigger task. Can you achieve it? If you cannot achieve it, leave it. Do the things you are comfortable in the moment. There are a lot of things we need to teach our peers or young people across the world in volunteering. It's about using the solar planet as an example. Now, let's say you are the sun. So now, what can you have control over? The ones closer to you. Have control over them, then take up the next one. If you can't, leave it. So I think I'll just stop here. Maybe I'll talk too much, so I'll just stop here. If there's any other question that comes up. Thank you, Anthony.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much for those profound remarks. I want to bring in Fauzia just to follow up on this subtopic, because she also wanted to speak on the same issues. So Fauzia, anything you would want to add probably on this? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just add a little bit on what my colleagues have said. On how to recognize mental health issues in others. As they've said, it's a very difficult aspect of doing it. But I visited a website, Mental Health Information, where I read that we should mainly focus on the changes on how someone's thoughts and behaviors are. Perhaps the person used to be positive, they used to be full of life, ambitious, they had a lot of goals. So if all of a sudden there's a change, a drastic change that you can't say where it's coming from or what's the cause, you should really concentrate and try to get to them. Mental health problem, it's not something easy to talk about. And so approaching that person and making them feel comfortable about sharing is very important. At the same time, it's not easy to recognize it in ourselves. So how do you recognize it in yourself, in others, yet in yourself, it's very difficult to do so. So that's the first thing I took note of. The other thing is that we should also be very keen on the interest of people. What are they interested in, and how does that change, especially after a major change in their life, after maybe a loss of someone they loved, unemployment. They're very different causes of mental health, which ranges from different aspects of life, from losing, from unemployment to failure of businesses and everything. So what's the interest and how has it changed for that person? How has it changed for yourself as well, that you can't notice that you're headed down the right road? I would also like to say we should not be ignorant of these things. Sometimes we say things and we just ignore or assume, thinking that it's just time, give it time, she will improve, he will be better. But with time, it doesn't change, it becomes worse. So let's not ignore that person who suddenly they've changed. Let's not ignore, let's not withdraw away from them. Let's just try to be there for them, step by step, and we will get to them. I had a question about setting boundaries to protect your own mental health. I appreciate what Stacy said, but it's a very contradictory aspect. As much as you want to protect yourself, how at the same time do you help others? it's a very, you also have to learn how to cope with the mental health of other people as well as you protecting your own. And how do you draw the line between that? How do you draw the line? Because you might be helping someone and at the same time making yourself be vulnerable to that type of mental health issue. Apart from that, I don't have much to say. Supporting people and keeping boundaries, we should be open-minded. We should all share and try to make a very conducive environment for our counterparts. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Fauzia. At this point, I'd want to bring in Katie to sort of follow up on what you said. And then after that, I'd also bring in Bismarck back to somehow cement on everything you guys have said.
Yeah, I think just coming off of what Swazia said, which is so true about making yourself maybe too vulnerable when you're helping other people. I think in my personal experience, I kind of ignored my own mental health issues for a while and became quite maternal to all my friends and used that as almost a distraction where I'd constantly be checking up on my friends and asking them how they were because I didn't really want to face maybe my own issues because it's easier to talk about someone else's problems than to think about your own. So I think that's definitely something that I have struggled with. Obviously, as well as like, if you have 5 different people telling you really heavy stuff, it's a lot for you to process and you yourself should probably then speak to someone else about it. But I think oftentimes a lot of female friends I have all said that it's sometimes they kind of become a counsellor in order to distract from their own problems. So I don't know if that's maybe a gendered issue, but that's, yeah, just thought I'd share on top of what Fazia just said.
Thank you very much for that. Bismarck, whenever you're ready.
So I just wanted to weigh in on the identifying mental health issues in others. Okay, so this is one major blind spot that I noticed in dealing with one of my volunteers 2 years ago. So normally we have the usual whereby you identify, let's say, irregular behaviors. Maybe they're having withdrawal syndrome, they are sort of maybe distancing themselves from others, social activities, trying to go to drugs and alcohol. But there is one pertinent thing that a lot of us miss is sometimes people don't distance themselves when they have mental health issues. They chase to have attention, they crave attention, they try to get people to listen to them, but in a way that you may not know that they are trying to get you to listen to them. You may think, oh, they are just trying to seek attention or try to self-impose. This is a situation with one of my volunteers back 2 years ago. So this guy actually wanted to talk more, but then at that point in time, at the close of the day, I am very tired. I just want to go and relax and just rest. So he wanted to speak with me more than I normally would give. So not knowing this guy was dealing with stuff that he couldn't really talk about to a lot of people. So he wanted me in particular because obviously I try to listen to a lot of people. I love to listen to them and sort of get what is going on in their life. That's what we do as peer educators or personal development practitioners. So we try to listen to people, talk to them, try to see what is going on in their life, how we can help them personally develop. So this guy wanted more than what I normally would give in a normal hours. I didn't know this was an issue with him. So he was struggling with these issues. So a lot of people try to look at they avoiding crowd or people as identifying, but we need this another dimension to the issues. They try to seek for more attention. That is when people fall into various vices, trying to seek attention or try to seek acceptance or try to get help from things that will not give them help, but rather will self-destruct. So we need to actually pay a close attention to when people are needy, overly needy or unnecessarily needy in those moments, if they display certain behaviors. So in this situation, one of the times, this is a practical example, this one of the time, this guy, okay, he smokes cigarettes. So normally this guy wouldn't smoke in front of me. But then in that moment, in those moments we've been together, you could see that this guy freely was doing it. And I didn't quickly realize, I got a hint that there is something wrong with this guy normally, because he wouldn't really do that in my presence. But in this case, he did that. So along the way, we got to realize this was the situation. I'm just giving all these practical examples so that we can actually relate it to how we go with a lot of people. We may not really identify the issues that has to do with mental health. So let's just be a bit more open to talk to people. Just have open conversation with people if they want to have a conversation. Just open conversation. Even if you're tired, try to schedule times with them that you can give them their total attention to talk to you. So I think that's just something I want to add to how to identify another dimension to identify mental health issues with a lot of people. So I hope I did justice to that.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much for such profound remarks. I want to bring in Tom to follow up on Katie's comment and talk about the gender bridge that is there.
Hi there, my name is Tom Bamford-Blake. I'm a doctoral tutor at Sussex University. And just following on from Katie's point from kind of a male perspective, I guess, I think it's definitely true in my experience that it's often young men are kind of raised to not be particularly fluent in their own emotions and to not reflect on their own mental health. And what that does mean, really, to echo what kind of Katie is saying, is often women are put into this kind of maternal position where they take on what's often called the emotional labor of dealing with both their own and men's mental health issues, whereas men are often raised to keep it inside, to be kind of quote unquote strong, etc., etc. That's obviously a gender stereotype that doesn't help either women or men, and I think it obviously speaks to wider issues around gender and kind of gender stereotypes, which speaks to issues with people who are trans or gender non-binary as well. So I think all of that stuff is connected. Yeah.
Swedi, I don't know whether you want to come in and comment on the universal tactic of distraction and maybe experiences that you have had.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just in relation to what Katie said and what Tom said, I think what happens is most times people tend to distract themselves with the issues going on in others' life. Like when you're helping others, you sort of forget you have issues, which is basically a distraction because you're eventually going to get back to those issues you have at home. And where that occurs, or where people don't even have others to, in quote, distract them, I think they resort to alcohol. But I think there's another view to it. There's something about helping people. Helping people has a way of making you feel good. So it's not always the fact that it distracts you. It's just that sometimes when you even have issues and you're humane enough to let go of your issues and concentrate on the issues of other people, you just feel something, you just feel a certain happiness to yourself. And I think this is very popular in Africa because we are largely communal here. So you find a situation where a father would stress himself, let me not use the father, a friend would actually go to very serious lengths to help another friend, and you see people sacrificing a lot. And at the end of the day, it's not that they are not having issues again, it's just that in their own way, they will get to feel better. The downside to this now is many times when you go out of your way to keep on helping others to feel good, your problems are not going to go away. So your problems are still going to be there. So it might make more sense while helping others and feeling good to also find community to also relate your own issues to. Like if you're helping your friends, there's no reason why they shouldn't help you too. And if you're in a place where you're only the one who is giving, then maybe you also have to re-examine that relationship. I think that's my own view on it. And we were just having this conversation now, also in the group, and we said it's something that is universal, it's everywhere, this same thing, and it happens to both men and women, even though it might be women who would do it more, because men would love to feel macho. They wouldn't really want to show that they have any issues. And so it's the reason why you find men offering to help people more. And at the end of the day, they would rather go and take a bottle of alcohol somewhere to drown their sorrows. But I think it's also important to let everyone know that it's okay to not be okay. And there's nothing wrong with being weak sometimes. And it's very helpful to be able to find a support system. If you cannot find people within your group who can support you, you can also seek professional help. And every community, every society has those people who can support them. And if you don't know them, you can, depending on where you are, if you're in a place that is urban, you can Google, you can use your Google search and you'll probably find some support. And if you're in a rural area, you can just go out and ask around and you'll be shocked at how much support you can get. I think that's my contribution.
Thank you very much for that line of thought. And I want to bring in Katie so that she can follow up on what you said really quickly. Then I'll move on to Abby so that we can talk about helping others. Katie, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that was amazing what you just said about it's okay to not be okay, but I think that's something that no one ever really talks about. So thank you for bringing that up. And just to go off what you said about alcohol, I think we have a real problem in Britain with drinking culture, where the more you drink, the kind of cooler you are, and it's so funny for everyone to drink. And if you are drinking for fun, that's great. But I think especially at university as a student, and a lot of students I've spoken to have said this, if you have mental health issues and then everyone is always going on nights out, everyone is always getting drunk, you can kind of just blend in. So if you're drinking to cover up a mental health issue, because everyone else is drinking for fun, you can kind of just blend in. And I definitely had times at uni where I would be drinking because I was sad or I had stuff going on at home, but I wouldn't tell anyone because everyone would think I was just so fun and I was just drinking because I was like life of the party, that kind of thing. And I think that's like not a gendered issue. I think that everyone does that, and I think it's a real problem, especially in English, British universities, probably universities everywhere. So yeah, I just wanted to add that point.
Thank you very much. So I want to bring in Abby so that she can talk about helping others, solutions, what can be done to help this, and maybe how can we create safe spaces for people to open up whenever you're ready.
Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Abby and I'm with Sussex Rights. So one of the most important things with mental health, looking after your own mental health and looking after other people who have, mental health issues, as has been said fantastically by, Suedi, Catherine, so everyone before me, basically. But one of the big things that I see a lot, and this is a big pattern that I see often is, and I'm guilty of it, is the open door policy. So people say, oh, my door's always open. If you've got problems, come and talk to me. The kettle can be on in 5 minutes. We can talk over coffee or whatever. But if you're suffering from a mental health problem, sometimes you don't want to be the person to step through the door. What you want is for somebody to actually hold out their hand, have an open hand policy and say, actually, you're clearly suffering. Let me help you. Because so that's where the suffering in silence comes from, I feel, is because they know the safe spaces are there. They know that it exists, not to dehumanize, but these people with mental health issues know that these institutions exist, but it's the fear of approach. So I feel one of the big changes that can be made with helping people with mental health problems is, and again, this feeds into the issue that Stacey mentioned earlier about boundaries and looking after yourself as well. And this is why it's such a delicate balance. But identifying when somebody is sort of unwell and needs help, and actually being able to close the gap and hold out your hand and say, I think you need help, let me support you. Because I don't think that gap is bridged at the moment. And I think that would be a brilliant way of opening up sort of conversation. And like I say, conversations like these are part of holding out the open hand. I mean, also the practicalities of having a safe space. I mean, what do you label as a safe space? I was speaking to somebody earlier, and like group therapy is a thing. And I can see why group therapy would exist, because you can bounce ideas off each other in an environment like this, or on a slightly more cynical level, it's better for funding, or that sort of thing. But if there's not the trust there, then up goes the wall, and the open hand cannot be extended. So there's a lot that needs to be done with paying lip service to having open doors and these institutions, but actually people being comfortable enough to access them in an effective way, I think, is part of the conversation that needs to be had.
Thank you very much. At this point, I want to give anybody who wants to follow up on what Abby said to take the next minute. So I'll start off with Swedi.
Okay, just to talk about stigma, because when there are certain things she said about opening up that reminded me that in certain communities, they don't know so much about mental health. That's the concept of mental health, and the fact that you always have to preserve your mental space. And anybody who just comes saying something like, "Oh, I'm having some issues, depression or anything," is just tagged a mad person. Like, they go like, "Oh, okay, this person is definitely mad." Or if you want to go to an institution to get some help, other people will tag you as somebody who is crazy. And a few years ago, I don't like saying this, but a few years ago, I went to see a friend of mine, a doctor who had checked himself into a rehab home, something like that. And that was the first time when I started seeing the difference, because before then, all I thought was anybody who goes to any mental institution is probably, person has issues that are beyond the normal. That person is, the picture I used to have of such people are people in rags, people on the streets. So I never even thought that there would be such places. So I think the key thing is it might also help us to sensitize people where we are. We might take it for granted that everybody knows, but it makes sense to sensitize people and let them know that there are people who can offer help, professional services when it comes to mental health. And that it's also, like I mentioned earlier, okay, once in a while to have these issues occur to us, which we can talk about. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you've totally gone mental. It simply means that you're human and that you need help, just like when you have a headache and you take paracetamol.
Thank you so much for those profound remarks. Does anyone else want to follow through on this comment? Monica?
Something, yeah. I would also like to highlight that people need to be more considerate and more patient in dealing with someone who are reaching out to them upon their mental health issues, because sometimes people tend to reach out to the people around them first before they start to think to reach for the professional mental health. And sometimes it takes us another patience in we need to be more considerate to maintain the good communication with these people. And it's important to be aware that we should not expect that things will be okay in the short term right after we support them. So I think it's important to take that time and to stick with these people patiently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want now to bring in Margaret to share her thoughts on this and possibly comment on helping others, solutions, and how we can create safe spaces.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I wanted us not to ignore the part of social movements such as LGBT, the feminist and pro-life and men's rights activities, because these people, they're suffering from mental health and they feel discriminated. And when you talk about the safe space, the environment where they can feel confident that they won't be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any other emotional or physical harm. And when lesbians and gays, they face people who are homophobic towards them, some of them, they leave their homes, they feel homeless because parents become homophobic and they don't accept this transgender issues, and this should be addressed. And when we were studying about group counseling, I think that is a solution for safe space where people with common issues, a house of commons where they can address their issues. And also the feminists, when they talk about gender equality, sometimes they're extreme, they get biased, and I think this should be addressed because people talk from their own perspective, their own experiences, and hence they become too judgmental. They forget that they should look at the pros and cons of everything. Personally, I'm a young mother, and I used to judge abortion, and I used to say that it's killing babies is not right. But I think when we have a place where we can discuss such things, where we can be told why people can do abortion, the pros and cons, so that at least some of us they just need acceptance, so they seek attention sometimes by being judgmental on others. And I think this is something we should not ignore. And also the safe place, we should think of initiatives that the youth can access. For example, here in Kenya, the NYS, National Youth Service, at least in such a platform, they build confidence and self-discipline, and thereby they cannot engage in activities that can bring self-harm to themselves. And also employment platforms, whereby even if the qualifications are not professional, at least a platform where youth can work. And also activities on the services available to the young people. I think by the groups, clubs that should be initiated, whereby they can oftenly go visit the sick, orphans, the old, at least to get a wider view of the world and how to approach others' issues before they go through the same. And being vulnerable, I think that is something everyone has undergone. And I think talking a platform where we can be talking about these things often can help us develop character and have ideas of selflessness. And also engaging in games and a spirit of adventure should be enhanced in us, and we require more figures, more role models who we can look up to, so that at least we can be examples and even have a brighter future and focus on our own lives. Thank you.
Wow, that was really spot on, and those were really good remarks. I'd want now to open the next 1 or 2 minutes to anyone who wants to follow through with anything that Margaret has shared. Thank you very much for this. I want now to go to the conclusions, and I'm going to call upon everybody. Just give your final remarks as you give maybe ideas on and possible solutions that are there to just to help people deal with mental health issues, especially young people who may not really be open to, who don't really know how to go about it, you know? So I will start off with Katie. Final remarks and any advice and solutions that you may have.
I think my advice and solutions are talk and don't stop talking, and don't ever feel guilty for talking, and don't ever feel like a burden, because it's another person's boundaries, it's responsibility to set boundaries. Everyone is responsible for their own boundaries. So talk and talk until you feel like you've got things off your chest, and seek professional people to talk to, or online forums to talk to people who are trained in this, because I think that's just the most important thing, where there's just strength in communication and talking and vulnerability.
Thank you very much. I want to bring in Abby.
Yeah, I'd just like to offer, it feels like quite a minor thing that I'm offering, but I feel like one of the biggest bits of advice that I would give is also don't feel bad for doing what you need to look after yourself, obviously provided that it's a healthy way of looking after yourself. But don't, if you are struggling, don't feel bad for indulging in something that you enjoy, or feeling like people are going to judge you for doing what you enjoy, or anything like that. If there is something that remains that makes you happy, then don't feel bad for taking part in that, because once you start thinking, oh, you know, I better not, or you start denying yourself that, then your self-care starts to slip. And honestly, self-care should be at the very top of your priority list at all times, whether you're supporting somebody else or you've got issues yourself. Then don't be afraid to put yourself first, which sounds a little bit sort of shallow and pithy, but I would reinforce that over and over again, is don't feel bad for putting yourself first.
Thank you very much for that. Swedi, I want to bring you in, and so that we can give your solutions and remarks.
Hi. I think I'll say a couple of things, but I'll try to be fast. First of all, I think we need to learn to be selfish sometimes, because because helping other people makes us to feel good. There's that tendency that we would give ourselves out a whole lot. We will try to go out of our way to keep on doing things. We need to learn that when we go out of our ways to always help, there's the tendency to break down. And I can say this from personal experience. So it's okay once in a while to be selfish. It's okay to say, I'm sorry, I cannot help at this particular time, or I have a few issues I need to take care of. That's one. Number two, to echo what Monica said earlier on, we should learn to be patient and considerate when we need to be, while remembering to be selfish. And we should also learn what works for us, because there are different things that work for different people. The art plays a very key role in being therapeutic. There are people who write, and writing brings them great relief. Like if you're feeling really burdened, you can write it down. You can put it as a memoir. You can put it as a diary, or you can turn it into fiction, because there's that release that comes. It's like you're talking to some other person, because there are some people who would only feel unburdened when they talk to other people. So at that point, maybe when you write, you'd find that relief. Or if it's sports that works for you, then by all means, watch as much sports as you can. If it's painting, whatever it is, but find that thing that works for you. And I know that every one of us has that thing that can give us that release. And I think when we do this, we would find greater relief, and would find a way to cope with our mental health, and more than just cope, find healing. Because what we truly need is healing always.
Thank you so much, Swedi, for those thoughts. I want to bring in Stacy through for her comments, advice.
Yes. Just for my closing comments, I would just like to say that there is no health without your mental health. So do not neglect your mental health because you do not want to put yourself first. I agree with Abby and Swedi when they said that it is okay to be selfish. It is okay to put yourself first, because you should be a priority to yourself. And although, yes, it is good to look after many people, when you start to do that, you start losing touch and not looking after yourself. So maintain your mental health and talk to people, talk to someone you trust. And if you do not have anyone, then it is good to express it in different forms of hobbies, using things that you can do around you. But also don't forget to support one another, because to someone else, you may be the support system that they need. So as well as you looking after yourself, it is good to also look after and care for others.
Thank you very much. Key takeaway, there is no health without mental health. Thank you for such wisdom and for also being part of this. I want to call upon Fauzia to give her final comments and advice. The floor is yours.
I'm going to start my final comment and advice with a story. So when I was in high school, I attended some, I don't know, training. Let me just say training for the young leaders. And we were given a task to, write your problems or the ones you feel they're very sensitive to you, and then put them in the basket, and then they're shuffled, and everyone picks from that basket. So from that, I learned that everyone has a problem. Everyone has an issue. You're not alone, and you can overcome it, but you also have to take the first step to do that. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much for those remarks. Monica, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So my conclusion is that it takes us to embrace our vulnerability in order to heal from it. And it takes everyone to end the stigma upon the mental health problems. And at the end, let's just reach out for help and be the helping hands.
Thank you very much. I would now like to bring in Bismarck for final thoughts and remarks.
Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to say that we all are involved. So how can we be of help? How can we all do something about this? Now we have social media as a great tool that we can all use to help spread messages of hope. So a friend once asked me, if someone is contemplating suicide and they open my social media accounts, will they go ahead, or they may find a message of hope and try and seek help? So when that friend asked me that question, that was when I began to actually pay attention to how I use my social media accounts. We all need to use our account to spread messages of hope. We need to use our accounts to put messages out there, live inspirational messages, try and get help for people, try and connect people to help, reach out to people. Try in every way possible to be that bridge for people to walk on and get to their destination. It is very important, in as much as we all are busy and we have things to do, but being selfless is the way to go. Secondly, for there to be harmony among the planets, or let's say the solar system, for the solar system to keep continuing or to keep going on, there needs to be harmony among the planets. So there are 7 steps that we normally use, or I identify with, or I try to tell young people to always use or try and leverage on these 7 steps. Now, the inner mind. We need a lot of things in our environment. Let's say our inner mind, our health, happiness, environment, understanding others, communication. We need all of this to be in harmony for us to have what we need to have when it comes to mental health. So when it comes to the inner mind, we need to ask ourselves these questions. Then in asking ourselves these questions, we can actually get answers to these questions. So one, what are things that you need to consider when it comes to your inner mind? You need to ask yourself, how often do you have feelings, thoughts, or carry out behaviors that you do not want to? You need to ask yourself those questions. Now, you need to ask yourself, how in control of your inner mind do you feel you are? After asking all that, you need to now leverage or come to think of the things that make you happy or the things that put you at your best. You need to realize what puts you at your best. What makes you happy? Look at them and leverage on such thoughts. You need to leverage on such thoughts. Always keep thinking about the things that put you at your best, things that make you your best. Now, coming back to your health, what ideal thing would you like to change? You need to look at that. You need to actually focus on what ideal thing you would like to change. If you realize the things you would like to change, then how will these changes help you be in control of your inner mind or your health? Now we come to happiness. You need to identify what makes you happy. We all need to identify what makes us happy. Is the thing that makes us happy are the ones that will take us forward. So after identifying the things that makes you happy, look at how much of your day do you spend thinking about the things that really makes you happy. Focus on the things that makes you happy. We are in a social media age whereby we have a lot of social pressure, a lot of fake lifestyle. So a lot of people tend to have mental health issue when they see that, okay, this person social media wise is doing better than I am. So focus on the things that makes you happy. Look at the things that makes you happy. Coming to our environment, you need to realize, okay, when reacting to or considering your environment, how positive is your outlook? How can you leverage on the things, the great things in your environment that can build your mental health? Are you excited about the challenges your environment brings to you, or do you moan about them? You need to think about all those stuff. Now we come to understanding others, how you understand others and you can relate with them. What perception do you have of others? You need to realize or kind of think about what perceptions you have of others. When you know the perceptions you have of others, now, do you want others to have such a perception about you? If you can answer that, then you are in a better step or in a better position to help your mental health. Now we talk about communication. We come to communication, how we can better communicate using body language, talking about listening language and tone. In what areas do you want to develop in your communication? Probably how do you communicate your mental health issues to your peers, to somebody you can trust with your issues? You need to have a look at that. How do you communicate it? Are you going to be so kind of somebody who is possessive and want to impose yourself on them, or you can communicate better? Now you need to look at how you perceive success. A lot of people perceive success as material things, but then we need to realize that being able to have a peace of mind is also success, or being able to have control over your mind, how you think about certain things, is success enough. So when you try to have control over what success means to you, what steps you are taking to achieve that success, that peace of mind, then you can better appreciate your mental health. Now, I want to give a recommendation or just something that we normally use to track progress in mental health or any personal development. Now, we try to use the traffic light as an instrument to track or to boost mental health issues or personal development. Now we use the red, amber, and the green. So now we say, okay, now with the red should be something you would like to stop in your journey of mental health, or if you are trying to help somebody get over their mental health issues. You need to ask them what one thing would they like to stop that they are doing is not helping their mental health. What is that one thing they would like to stop? When they identify that, they can write it down and start working on avoiding that thing. Now, the amber light, or which some people call yellow, is something you would like to continue doing. Probably you've started, but it's just at the minimal side of it. You're just doing it at a minimal level. You need to look at how you can continue doing this. Now, with the green light, which we normally say go, is what is that one thing you would like to start doing? For somebody who may be having issues with alcohol, what is that one thing they would like to start doing? They would like to start seeking help or start getting sober. So let them identify, when you are trying to help somebody, let them identify the things that can help them. In giving them that authority over their mental health by choosing or picking up things they would like to do to help themselves, and not you imposing what you think works best for them. That is a step to help them achieve their mental health. So that is just a bit of what I have to say, and as a conclusion or as a feedback or as a recommendation to people. And I hope if there's any question, you can pose it and I can answer that briefly. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor having you here. I want to thank you everybody for this very rich and insightful discussion. We could not have done it with you. Mental health is a really sensitive issue, continues to affect everybody globally. As Fauzia said, everybody has got a problem. And I believe at the end of the day, it's just accepting the fact that if you're not okay, you're not okay. And it's okay to seek help. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for guidance, because life can sometimes be a full cup and we may not have the grace to really just go through it alone. And that's why we are so many of us. That's why things like marriage exist. That's why friendships exist. That's why people cannot run businesses alone. People cannot have these discussions alone. So always remember that you're not here alone, because at the end of the day, if God wanted us to be alone, everybody could have been placed in an individual planet and you do life on your own. So just remember, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to break down. And just at the end of the day, whenever you're broken, just remember the phoenix bird, the rise from the ash. It's always something that I keep going with in life. And also allow me just to quote the one of the most famous documents in the world, and that is the American Declaration of Independence. And they spoke about 3 inalienable rights, and among them was pursuit of happiness. And pursuit of happiness is important in life, and you cannot pursue happiness alone. It starts with you, but you cannot really pursue it on your own. So you just need to know what happiness looks like to you. Don't really succumb to the pressures of society. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a really beautiful life. And that is the essence of life. I want to bring in Tom to say his final thoughts, and then that will be it from our side. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, almost as already said with our amazing comments. So the one thing I wanted to add was, if you feel like you're in an environment or you're surrounded by people where you're not being recognized, where you're not being supported, your mental health is not being supported, sometimes it can be a struggle and a challenge to get to the people and the systems that will support you. But those people are out there. They really, really are. And that struggle is worth it. You're worth it, and you are worth fighting for. That was really what I wanted to say.
Tom, so yeah, everybody, stay safe. Thank you for joining us. We have some more 2 events coming in the next 2 weeks. So we look forward to seeing you here. And to the panelists, thank you so much for creating your time and bringing your diverse experiences here and sharing with everybody what we personally have gone through and your chain of thoughts. And I cannot thank you enough for just all that you have done and all that you continue to do. And thank you to the team, the organizing team. Many are behind the scenes, and thank you, and your effort does not go unrecognized. And yeah, stay safe, be happy, and it's okay not to be okay.